But it's now my great pleasure to introduce Mario DeGangi, our Executive Officer, who will welcome you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. As Carrie said, we read your applications with great interest and admiration, and we're thrilled to meet you in person. I am just going to talk for a moment and then introduce the rest of the program's administrative team, and then we'll get on with the program. So I'm the executive officer of the program, which basically means chair. I think it's fair to say that the students who find our program appealing, who are admitted to it, who enroll in it and thrive in it, tend to have a few of the following characteristics. And these are just from my observations over the years and of what I've appreciated and admired so much about CUNY graduate students. They are passionate about teaching and take particular pleasure and satisfaction in teaching the diverse, hardworking, and worldly undergraduate population of CUNY, the nation's largest urban public university. They are eager to take risks with their scholarship, to formulate ambitious and creative projects, to expand the boundaries of literary study through interdisciplinary approaches, to take courses representing a wide range of fields, approaches, and types of media, to pursue subjects that have deep personal and political significance for them, and to appreciate the scholarly generativity of what is queer in the many senses of that term. They value academic community in that they are eager participants in and organizers of events, are supportive and collegial peers, and take advantage of some of the many opportunities to contribute to the governance and culture of the English program. And finally, they are dedicated scholars, as well as many other things. And the students that I've come across in my years here are, as well as being scholars, are marathon runners, musicians. We have some rock stars in the program. They're political organizers, poets, writers, visual artists, just an amazing range of things. And it's another way of saying, in part, that they take advantage of New York as in the cultural and artistic and communal resources in New York City, even in the face of exhaustion, of stacks of papers to grade, and of imminent paper deadlines. They somehow manage to do all of these things. So you don't have to do all those things to be a successful student here. But the point I wanted to make to you is that, as you know, committing to the years of hard work and financial expense that come with doing a PhD can be a daunting prospect. And I just wanted you to know that if those kinds of pursuits and passions that I described are important to you, that I hope you discover today that those will be very much welcomed if you decide to join us in the fall, which I hope you do. Thank you very much. Welcome again. And I just want to introduce the members of the program's administrative team who are here. You met Carrie Hintz. Carrie is one of our deputy executive officers in terms of admissions, who is in charge of admissions. Emil Alcalay, who will be speaking to you later in the program, is our second deputy executive officer, and he is in charge of job placement activities. And Nancy Silverman is our assistant program officer. Stand up. Should you enroll, you'll get to know Nancy very well. She will counsel you, advise you, guide you, and tell you how to get through the program smoothly. And Nancy, do you want to say anything? Okay. You'll talk to Nancy later. And, well, that's it. So I'm going to cede the floor back to Carrie. So thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you all later.
Thank you, Mario. Clap for Mario. Okay. I'd like to now introduce two of our student representatives, Justin Van Wormer and Paul Fest. They are the English Student Association co-chairs. Welcome, Paul and Justin.
All right, thanks for the introduction, Carrie. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. I'm Justin, this is Paul. We're your ESA co-chairs. Does it not, I thought it was picking me up. I didn't want to overheat. We're your ESA co-chairs. So we're your ESA co-chairs, jeez. The green jacket is a badge of office. If you get elected co-chair, you will be fitted for one. The ESA is an organization of all the students in the English PhD program, which is the vehicle through which we as students get to make choices about the shape and direction of the program. It provides a forum for voicing student concerns about the program, and through open meetings and your participation directly in elected committee positions, students get a voice in the decisions here at the GC. Student committee members were some of the people who went over your application materials and wanted you to join our community here at the Graduate Center. Student committee members sit on faculty membership committees, run the ESA elections, conduct course evaluations, make decisions about curriculum, and a whole lot more.
The ESA offers students the chance to work closely with faculty on the future direction of the program. You get to know faculty personally and professionally as mentors and colleagues. And this kind of committee service will add value to your CV, and you get to get the chance to experience the kind of service you'll find in your cushy tenure-track job. We wanted to show you we have a space on the academic commons through CUNY, and it's sort of a clearinghouse space of all information about what's going on with students at the GC and upcoming events with the GC and calls for papers. It's a site that Paul Hebert has worked very hard on, among others, and it's sort of like the clearinghouse information of information for information about the ESA. We also have a Facebook. We have the Facebook, and you can. Yes, we've updated ourselves. So you can go on Facebook, find us on Facebook, and please ask to join, and we'll approve you as long as you're not too weird.
We're using the Commons and Facebook to try to make sure that we have fora in which to communicate and organize ourselves as students. We're developing these tools, and we hope if you decide to join us, you will help us move all of these sorts of actions forward in order to make this a really connected and unique group. Towards that social end, I do want to finally emphasize the fact that one of the things the ESA does is organize social events. And our big one is Revels. And you, if you would like today, during the reception portion of your afternoon, ask a current student about the exciting possibilities for what I'm going to call a party atmosphere and student fellowship that Revels will facilitate at the end of every semester. We also organize student mentorships, wherein each new student is paired with a current student in the program, which in particular has been and will continue to be extremely helpful to new students becoming more comfortable and involved in the life of the program.
So we're happy to welcome you here, and we're available to answer any sort of questions that you have in the little soiree that we're going to have after everybody presents. So please feel free to come talk to us.
And I will be busy trying not to make direct eye contact with any of you.
What do you?
Just hit the button.
Thanks, Paul and Justin. It's an honor to introduce Professor Wayne Kestenbaum, who's going to talk about a subject that's very near and dear to our hearts, the subject of writing. Wayne.
Thank you. Writing. Well, I speak to those of you who come here with a vocation as writer, whatever that means, and to those of you who don't come here with that vocation but might find yourself ambushed by it when you arrive or by the time you exit. I think that as I arrived at graduate school years ago as a poet, and graduate school did not stop me from being a poet. It changed the kind of poet I was. I think it's like, for example, if you're in visual art and you're spending all your time figuring out how to draw an ankle, and then you go to art school and you realize that people aren't drawing, you don't need to worry about how to draw an ankle. There's something called conceptual art. You can relax. And I think that coming to a PhD program as a writer is a bit like that, it's incredibly intellectually invigorating to realize that writing, to see the horizon of writing past and future open up for you, and you learn intellectual boldness. again, personally speaking, before I got my PhD, I had very, very tame ideas of what literature could be. And I very quickly learned in graduate school, and I don't think I would have learned it elsewhere as quickly, about things that were then new, like feminist psychoanalytic theory. And I realized very quickly that my strangeness was an asset, or that it, in fact, was the stuff of thinking, and that I could plunge into my strangeness, maximize it, intensify it, analyze it, and turn that into my vocation. So it was that change of view through a PhD program that hooked me into the kind of writing that I do. I also think that you will be speaking a lot when you're here, often in very artificial circumstances like this, or the even more straitened circumstance of a seminar room. Though I think the seminar rooms here are 1,000 times more relaxed than in our peer universities. Really, they are. Nonetheless, you will find yourself gradually learning the art of shaped speech as you speak in class. And we don't teach this, per se. We don't have a class in shaped speech, but you pick it up. And lo and behold, by the time you're done here, your speech will be more shaped. And guess what? So will your writing. It's just in the water here. And so I think that going through this strange, bookwormy progress through a program like this, you end up with a more attuned relationship to language. And that's actually the last thing I want to say, is that being in a community of linguistically attuned people changes your life. And it's, I know that could happen in physics or French, but many of us speak English. That's sort of what we do, and so we end up being English majors, and here we are. And all you do, no matter what else you seem to be doing in classes and reading, you pay attention to often English words, or whatever you call English, but you know what I mean. You just pay attention to those words and how they behave, and they become your toys and your friends. And if people say outside this weird life of ours, what is it exactly that you do? You could say, well, I fetishize language, and I'm spending 5 years learning how to defend that fact, and then also learning how to apply it and force it on the rest of the world. I don't know if I've talked about writing, but I think what I want to say, in brief, I will close by saying that though I am, in some sense, an old-fashioned kind of writer, poet, essayist, you don't have to be that kind of old-fashioned writer to take advantage of the climate of linguistic attentiveness and reckless plunge into language's offers by coming here. So I believe this strongly, and I can see them all around. My spies are planted throughout here, and we are many. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Elizabeth Decker will join us to speak about building a scholarly project by moving through the program's milestones.
So I know Carrie just told you I was going to tell you about milestones, but that word to me connotes a sense of an ending, whereas I think these sort of formal moments are really better thought of as moments of transition in the program. Am I in this enough? Mm-hmm. Yes, okay. So the first thing you'll do as a PhD student here, like all programs, is begin your coursework. And if you have had a chance to look at the many courses offered at the Graduate Center, you're probably excited first by the number of courses, but I would actually encourage you to really go through those descriptions, and I think you'll be impressed by the variety of the way that these courses are approached, but also the depth and the passion that professors put into their seminars here. Like Wayne said, the atmosphere in the seminars are different, and they really encourage a unique kind of scholarship. And so many incoming students, and as you should, get excited about taking courses in what you planned on coming here to study, but also really try to stretch their wings that first year because they're such new and exciting approaches to fields that you may have not considered new or exciting before. The other bonus of that sort of expansion is that your first formal moment of transition at the Graduate Center is your comprehensive exam, which you take at the beginning of your second year, which asks you to show mastery over the fields of English at large. So two good things about that. One, as you sit for and study for that exam, you start to feel like, hey, I kind of know what I'm doing in the field of English study. But secondly, and more importantly, is that students start to really gravitate towards a field of interest. And emerging from that exam, I think students begin to really start to ignite a passion for your own interest and moving you towards that scholarly project. And to borrow another phrase from Wayne, plunging into your own strangeness. So in your second and third years of coursework, you can begin to develop your approaches to scholarship, hone in on a specific field of study, and also prepare yourself for that third mode of transition, which we call the orals exam. The orals exam asks you to create 3 bodies of knowledge that are of direct interest to your own scholarship. And the Graduate Center is extremely flexible about what those lists look like. So you really compose these from your own interests and working with the 3 people in the program that you feel most ally with your interests. And in doing so, you really become, for the first time, when you take that exam, which is a formal 2-hour conversation with your advisors, you become the master in the room for the first time. And it's a really lovely and almost empowering moment of transition. And most students by this point, you're in your 3rd or your 4th year, and you're really ready to move into your own scholarship. So the 4th formal moment you'll work through is writing your dissertation prospectus. And it's now time to sort of emerge from the sea of knowledge you have been wading around in your coursework and your orals, and actually put on paper a 10-page document, an enunciable project identifying the conversations you've been partaking in, the ones you'd like to contribute to, the people who you'd like to ask question of, the kind of questions you're asking, again with the goal of being able to move into your scholarly project of the dissertation. So very broad strokes, this is the way that the PhD program in English here moves you from being a student, a PhD student, to a PhD candidate. I had a joke and now it's just going to be terrible, but to move you from point A to point ABD.
I now have the joy of introducing a team of scholars, and they are being invited to speak to you today. I'll let them talk about their project, but we've invited them to gesture to how collaborative opportunities work and form at the Graduate Center, and also to point you to the incredible power of archival resources here in the city and at CUNY, and our love of mining the archives. So the Lost and Found team, I'd like to introduce Amil Alkali, Imanja Brown, Kristen Mariah, Talia Shalev, Connor Tomas Reed, Wendy Tronrud to come to the front and tell us more about their work.
Thank you. We're not going to say much about the work. We're going to present a choral reading from one of our projects, but I'll just say very briefly that Lost and Found, which began as a very modest enterprise, is now an empire. And we're not kidding. It's really taken off. It's a publishing project that's based right here in the Graduate Center. Our printing is done on level Z in this building, and much of our distribution takes place from the 5th floor, and we're sold nationwide and reviewed, etc. And this is a project from the great years of, which still continue, of CUNY poet teachers, the late 60s, early 70s, where people like Audre Lorde and Toni Cade Bambara and June Jordan and Larry Neal and David Henderson and Addison Gale and many, many others taught at City University. And these are the archives of Adrienne Rich and her teaching materials from the years she spent at City, 1968 to 1974.
From notes, statements, and memos on SEEK, basic writing and the interdisciplinary program. Introductory, what we are a part of. Classroom is cell, unit, enclosed, and enclosing space in which teacher and students are alone together. It can be prison cell, commune, trap, junction, place of coming together, torture chamber, but also part of much bigger nationwide cultural revolution, compensatory education, increasingly important aspect of higher education.
English 1H, fall term 1971, Prof. A. Rich. This class will start from the idea that language, the way we put words together, is a way of acting on reality and eventually gaining more control of one's life.
The people in this class and their experiences will be the basic material of the course, about which we will be talking and writing. In writing, we will be trying to define the actual experiences we ourselves are having, and to make others more aware of our reality as we perceive it.
So these next are some questions that could be considered as mantras or Zen koans, but also what we've been thinking about in this project of recovering Adrienne Rich's archives of teaching at City College of New York as a way to look at our work as being politically positioned and in movement in creating the university that we're a part of. So first question. When you come out of here, who will you be?
Who decides what you are allowed to learn?
Dramatic pause. What determines the courses you take each semester?
Where is the power that controls your life here?
What does quality education mean?
What is a university?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that beauty. Thank you. Our next speaker was unable to join us today because she's got that bug that everybody has. If you have that bug, please do not cough on your neighbors and friends. But she was going to talk about digital initiatives at the Grad Center, and there's a little handout about it. It's an area of incredible growth and energy here at the Grad Center. And so the sheet has points in a few directions. Some of the many fellowships and grants that are supporting digital work here, the many programs you can take, including the Interactive Technology and Pedagogy Certificate, the various active publications and collaborative projects that CUNY is supporting. Please do email Erin Glass, listed below, if you are interested in hearing more, or talk to me, because they would love you to know about these great efflorescences. Timothy Griffiths will now join us to talk about diversity at the GC and New York City as our campus.
Hi, thanks, Carrie. So welcome, and thank you for coming today to learn a little more about the program. I'm Timothy Griffiths. I'm a second-year student focusing on 19th century literature, African-American literature, and queer theory. And I currently sit here on the ESA Conference Committee and on the English Department's Diversity Committee. My brief comments are on diversity at the Graduate Center and on studying in the New York area. But before I get too deep into describing diversity at the Graduate Center, I just want to say that diversity, it would sort of, I think, ring false to stand up here and say that rah-rah, like diversity is awesome at the Grad Center, because I think a lot of us who do that sort of work recognize that it's not. And that wouldn't be true anywhere. And in fact, I want to quote from a recent essay by our own Professor Robert Reed-Farr on what it is we talk about when we talk about diversity. So, quote, "I want to point out in what bad faith most of our conversations around diversity and diversification within American colleges and universities are undertaken. There has been no substantial increase in the numbers of Black and Latino college and university professors since the 1970s. The most common, most rigid liberal response to this reality has been that the problem lies not with the profession itself, but with some nebulous pipeline, because of an always ill-defined, if much bemoaned, history of always already past discrimination. There are simply not enough Black and Latino persons with the competence to earn the PhD, What I want to suggest to you, however, is that we desperately need a new script. I don't believe that that the problem lies with Black and Latino incompetence, but instead with a rather stunning commitment to mediocrity that, though festering and enervating, is treated almost as a sort of vulgar gospel among university professors and administrators alike, end quote. Many of us at the Graduate Center are in fact treating diversity not as a nebulous pipeline, the gateway into an immutably white male academia, but as a holistic change in academic culture that values the work of diversity not as a sort of pragmatic grunt work of forced representation, but as some of the sharpest, most rigorous intellectual work now being done at the college level. And to that effect, and I'm going to ask if there are people in here who do this work, if you could raise your hand so people could find you later. If you want to speak more about how many of us are working to change our approach to diversity at the Graduate Center, I recommend talking to Danica Savanik and Frances Tran, if she's here, who work on the burgeoning area of critical university studies, to Chris Sang, Melissa Proxishar, and myself, and anyone else who works on the Mentoring Future Faculty of Color lecture and lunch series, to Duncan Faraday, Candace Chu, and me, and a host of other people in here about revolutionizing American studies, or to Sean Kennedy and Carrie Hintz about the Critical Diversities Reading Group. These projects, many of which are doing the work of diversity at the graduate level, changing the conversation, the culture, the criteria of inquiry, are just a few of the ways, even though it sometimes feels like the few ways, in which diversity is really valued at the Graduate Center. Another place in which our program excels in diversity is in our approach to curriculum and diversity of inquiry. When I was choosing a program, I was struck by the difference between the GC and other programs in terms of what type of courses were being offered, namely that other schools were married to demarcations of period and genre, whereas in our program, the framework of many classes is special topics oriented, and in many instances cross-temporal and interdisciplinary. I'm not going to gloss over the notion that it is still an uphill battle to get these ways of working recognized, but you should feel comfortable if you choose to come here that many of the people I previously mentioned support a curricular framework that does not insist on intellectual homogeneity. My first semester here, I took Alan Vardy's class, Romanticism, Landscape, and Nature, because I was told that I should take a class from outside my field to do better on the comps. The surprise was that the more valuable thing it did was invite me into a period and genre that was not my own, and in that class, although my interests were not of the period, so to speak, they were always of value. As a result, the work I wrote in that class opened me up to intellectual inquiry in a place where I hadn't been looking, which is how I got into one of my primary interests, which is queer ecology. I didn't know I needed to look at romantic poetry or work with romanticists or get interested in 19th century landscape aesthetics, but I did. And I got to, as Candace Chu puts it, read promiscuously. Finally, although it could sound provincialist to say so, studying in New York opens you up to a culture of academic diversity, particularly because we have so many colleges, research libraries, and independent cultural organizations in the area. Because of the Inter-University Doctoral Consortium, I was fortunate last fall to be able to take a class in NYU Performance Studies with Tavia Nyong'o and Jose Esteban Munoz. I've been to lectures at NYU, Columbia, the New York Public Library, the Schoenberg Center, the CUNY satellite campuses, and various bookstores in the area. And I believe that the access to these events has been an essential part of my growth as a scholar. Cross-institutionality is how you meet other scholars, find outside readers, form panels for regional conferences, and challenge the assumptions you form at your home institution. So in short, although I love my program, being able to get outside of it is incredibly invaluable. And I think at CUNY you should expect to wander outside your domain in a lot of crucial ways. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Amiel Alpalai, who is our placement officer, will come and talk about the job search and support that we give students in professionalization.
Thank you, Carrie. I just want to say, listening to the choral reading, just how moved I was, and the fact that we work so hard, you know, that we don't have time sometimes to be moved by our own work. And that's kind of how I want to conclude, you know, your perspective on the job market situation, because it's quite early, but I know people are anxious. First thing I would just say is academic time is kind of the twilight zone. You are expected to think in 5, 6, 7-year increments that don't yet exist. And it's very anxiety producing. And I'll just say that our, our job placement setup under my iron hand is, I think, a bit unique in that a lot of our materials, they've been gathered by experience. There's a lot of good institutional experience in this room and in this program and CUNY-wide. You will all be exposed to many, many different minds in your years here, and there's a tremendous amount of political acumen and actual experience out there that really helps you navigate the world that you're going to be in. And I think that is very unique to our setup, very, very unique. And I've come to conclude that that is the X factor that has given us such good numbers. If you want statistics, I can give you statistics, which are really quite good, and we've been tabulating lately. And of the last 5 years, it's a little bit rough because some people need to be tracked down, but of roughly about 150 graduates of the program, 127 are working full-time in higher ed. Of those, 89 are tenure-track positions. So we're doing very, very well under, national circumstances that are not doing so well. And I'm not painting a rosy picture about what it looks like, but I'm saying that our support here is very, very serious and long-standing. Even if you've graduated, we follow you around and we keep track of you and we help you out. And our students have created guidebooks and prepared materials, and I take phone calls from panicking people at airports on their way to interviews and so on and so forth. So I would just say, allay your anxieties, and the old adage, the map is not the territory. You have to dwell here for a while, and you ought to be having fun while you're doing it and not pressurizing yourself to the end results, which hopefully will be very good.
Thank you, Emil. I think one component, if I was to be asked what is a major component of your job, it would be to cavil over the achievements of our students. It's really takes many hours of the week because people are writing and publishing so many amazing things. And one of the things we do yearly is we have a collective book party in which our students and faculty alike share what work they've published in the last year. And of course, people have alluded to our many student poets, but and too many to mention. I mean, it would take a long time, as I'm indicating, to sort of detail all the amazing articles, books, chapbooks that our students, novels that our students have been publishing. But I do want to name two. This program is really fortunate to have 2 finalists for the 26th annual Lambda Award finalists, the Lambs, and they are Anna Gozacevic in the field of lesbian poetry for her collection Rise in the Fall, and Trace Peterson for an anthology that she co-edited called Troubling the Line, Trans and Gender Queer Poetry and Poetics. We're cheering for them, and we're really proud that they were nominated. It's a huge honor for them and a great boon to our program, so congratulations to them. And here's another person coming up that we should be congratulating, Rowena Kennedy Epstein, an alumna of our program, who will tell you about her successful job search.
Hello, welcome. Right, so I'm going to talk about the job search a little bit, but I really want to talk about the kind of job candidate you are, and kind of how that you're produced into the kind of candidate you're going to be when you go on the market. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Now? I always have to lean over this leg. It's very uncomfortable. Or I can hold it. Anyway, on the pragmatic level, Emil and many faculty members will work tirelessly with you, editing your job letters, going over your CV, holding mock interviews. But I don't think that is as important as the unique way in which you will be trained and supported as a scholar and teacher here, which you've heard over and over again already, and how meaningful that community is as you go onto the market, since you are choosing to pursue a profession in which only a lucky few are getting jobs, though maybe not, I don't know, statistically, sounds better here. This seems particularly important. At every step of my experience at the Graduate Center, I was encouraged and supported to go towards the ideas and texts that I found most exciting and enlivening, and to pursue projects that had meaning both inside and outside the academy, to study things that felt urgent. For me, this ultimately meant producing an unconventional dissertation, which included editing a scholarly edition of a lost Spanish Civil War novel by the American poet Muriel Rukeyser that I discovered in the Library of Congress archive, and that would also be published by the Feminist Press. And this research began while I was working on Lost and Found, and really stuff right at the beginning of my time here. In my first year of the program, I was encouraged to go into the archive, and this became central to my experience as a scholar, learning to trust my instincts and with a feeling of great liberation and responsibility to work on texts that had never been discussed before. This was essential to my life as a teacher, to the kinds of essays and writings I produced, and to the kind of job I would ultimately get. Just as I defended my dissertation and went on the market, the novel was published and received a lot of critical attention. So with the great support of those at the GC, I managed to do what most scholars want, which was produce work that was public, part of discourses outside of the academy, but also relevant and important to my field. But this also meant I was an unusual job candidate. I had a single author dissertation, half of which was textual scholarship, and the other half of which was about women's writing, feminist theory, and radical politics. Never an easy sell. I was worried about the nature of my work as I went on the market, which I did for a few years before getting a job, and would often think I needed to tailor myself or my work to more conventional standards. At every time I felt this, I was encouraged to present myself and my work more lucidly and not less. While on the market, I said more than once, I can't go through this again, I can't get rejected again, I'm going to open a pot cafe in Seattle. Each time I said this, the answer from someone here was, you should have opened one in Seattle. Was keep going, don't do that yet. So just at the beginning of my career at the GC, I was again encouraged to trust my instincts and my work, reaffirmed that the scholarship I wanted to do and had value and urgency. So in that sense, it's very human here. In this way, everyone wants you to do the kind of work only you can do, and I think that's the kind of thing a hiring committee ultimately wants. So good luck. I hope you come to the program. It's fantastic. Thank you.
When we get to the Q&A panel, I'm hoping that some of my colleagues can also chime in about some of the grants and professional opportunities that they have been sponsoring with their students, including other collaborative work, you know, for example, collaborating on scholarly or editorial collections, and then a number of recent grants and fellowships that are designed to support work in the archives. So I hope there's a chance to talk more about that, and also a lot of workshops, especially recently sponsored by humanities seminars like the Revolutionizing American Studies seminar, which has brought in some work, has created some workshops for grant writing. So this notion of supporting you early and throughout your graduate career to present your work to the outside world and to procure support for it. So it is something we're increasingly serious about and attuned to. Our alumni come back, and so I'd like to say welcome Jen Mitchell, who's also an alumna of our program, to talk about how the GC prepares you for daily life in a real, actual English department.
This is a real, actual English department. I feel like you
probably... No, I know.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to talk about sort of three things that I think are particularly unique about this place. And one of them is actually a little anecdote about when I was sitting in those seats kind of nauseatingly 8 years ago. And one of the student speakers that day gave a talk about failure and about, I'm serious, and about how this place kind of celebrates risk, and that with risk can come great reward, but it can also come big, messy flops. And I was sitting there and thinking, I've never sort of been in a place where a speaker would get up and kind of own up to things not working. And that kind of environment and the fact that risk is so celebrated and such a kind of central part of the way that we continuously see the development of our profession. I think that was just phenomenal to me, and I feel like my time at the Grad Center prepared me for that, because it's still an aspect of life. You know, you write things that you're like, this is brilliant, and then someone says, stop. And I think that's actually a really important part of sort of what we do. The second thing, and Carrie just mentioned it, is collaboration. If you look around, not only the current students that are here, but the faculty members that are here, and all of you guys who are sort of prospective students right now, these are your colleagues, these are your peers. And no place that I've ever worked or ever sort of been a student has kind of inspired so much supportive and collaborative work. And so these are the people that you're going to work with, and in a real English department, that kind of collaboration is becoming more and more a real celebrated instrument in terms of both within discipline and also interdisciplinary work. And lastly, and I know this has been mentioned before, but student presence in this department is astonishing. The GC is unique in its ability to treat you and to prepare you to be a colleague. And so the transition from being a student to being a colleague is one that I think can trouble a lot of people, and some of the people that I work with have had a lot of trouble kind of adjusting to that shift. And I feel like spending time on committees, talking to your faculty members, having drinks with them, just the fact that like this is your life, that those things set you up to transition really smoothly into going from a grad student to being an assistant professor. And so those are things maybe that you're not thinking about right now, but I think they're things that are sort of a foundational part of this department, and it's really quite a remarkable place. So thank you.
Jen is currently teaching at Weber University in Utah, so she's come back for a very important party. Your bachelorette party, right?
Yes.
Let the party continue. Alexander Balisano, who's a student in our program, will talk about acting as a research assistant in your first year and also teaching at CUNY. So, Alexander.
Hi, like Carrie said, my name is Alexander Baldessano. This is my second year in the program. Just finishing up my coursework, and it's been a great 2 years. First of all, when I was working as a research assistant, I got to work for 2 different professors, which was a pretty exciting way to enter the program. So as a medievalist, I got to work for a medievalist professor and also an early modern professor who were both engaged in different sorts of research. So I'm going to draw both upon my research, my personal research experiences, but also from what I've heard from my colleagues and what their experiences were like. So as a research assistant in your first year, you might find yourself doing some really exciting things like working pretty closely with the professor to which you've been assigned on their project, putting together bibliographies and gathering all sorts of material that might be relevant to their interests. And not only is it relevant to their interests, often you'll be paired up with somebody who has similar fields, so even if it's not directly what you're interested in, you get to work pretty in-depth into related fields that help you expand your interests and get a sense of what's out there. And of course, as a research assistant, you'll also find yourself doing things like scanning page after page and chapter after chapter and picking up library books. And while on the one hand, yes, this does seem tedious, it's also an interesting way to think about approaching putting courses together. So a lot of times you'll be helping your professor work their way through organizing their syllabi, getting the readings that they find are most important. So while you're working as a research assistant, you'll also be able to start looking ahead to your next year when you start teaching. And some of you will be coming in with teaching experience and some of you won't. Regardless of where you stand with your teaching experience, this first year as a research assistant is, on the one hand, good for getting you used to the sorts of research you're going to do when you are a professor, but it's also great for getting you to think about the sort of work that goes into putting a syllabus together, and what sorts of readings are well developed, and from what readings can come after the next, and how you might want to think about teaching your own courses. So as far as teaching at CUNY goes, this is my second semester teaching at CUNY. I'm teaching at Hunter College, but there are a variety of different courses being taught at all of the different CUNYs, and everybody's experience is going to vary based on which school you're at. Every school is so different, even with Pathways passing. So regardless of what you might have heard about Pathways and how that may or may not do away with autonomy, I think even regardless of Pathways, schools will retain their autonomy, and every school is going to be different and unique in a way that's not going to be done away by Pathways. So your experience teaching at John Jay might get you to work in a writing lab as well as teaching composition. Your experience at Hunter might be that you're teaching composition too, but that doesn't mean that it has to be the same composition too that's being taught at Queens. You'll be teaching something like Introduction to Writing About Literature, where you have total autonomy over the sorts of texts that you want to introduce to the classroom. You might also be teaching, like let's say at Queens Composition 1, which won't be anything like the Composition 1 at Hunter. I know that one of the themes for Composition 1 at Queens was Introduction to Thinking About Creativity, and you get to organize what you want to bring to the classroom. So just to sum up, it's been a really great few years being introduced to working in scholarship and research and teaching, and I love teaching at CUNY, I love teaching at Hunter. I look forward to the coming experiences that I will have, and I hope that everybody here will also get to have that unique experience of teaching, because I know a lot of other programs won't necessarily put you in front of a classroom as quickly as we do, and that's one of the great things about CUNY, that we really trust you to continue inspiring incoming students. Thank you.
I'll be inviting Alexander up in a minute to moderate the Q&A panel, but I first wanted to make some brief logistical remarks about our admissions process and timeline, and then also to thank the recruitment committee for curating the program today and for also putting together the list of email contacts of current students who are willing to talk with prospective students about all aspects of the program, from literary periods to program life to work-life balance and many, many other things. So thank you so much to the recruitment committee for all of your work under the omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent chair, Alan Vardy. Thank you so much for your help.